Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from
Oh.
Canto 3, Chapter 16, Text 25. Yam
Yam
Va
Va
Anayoho
Anayoho
Damam
Damam
Vadhisha
Tadhisha
Bhavan
Bhavan
Bhate
Vidhate
Tim
Vritim
Nu
Nu
Va
Va
Tat
Tat
Anumanmahi
Anumanmahi
Yalikam
Nivyalikam
Asmasu
Asmasu
Va
Va
Yaha
Yaha
Uchitaha
Chitaha
Hriyatam
Hriyatam
Saha
Saha
Dandaha
Dandaha
Ye
Ye
Anagasau
Nagasau
Vayam
Vayam
Ayakshmahi
Ayunksmahi
Kilbishena Kilbishena
Bilbishena
Yamvanayardamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhatte
Yamvanayodhamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhate
Yamvanayardamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhatte
Yamvanayodhamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhate
Vrittim Nuvataranumanmahi Nirvyalikham
Vrittim Nuvataranumanmahi Vinirvyalikam
Vrittim Nuvataranumanmahi Nirvyalikham
Vrittim Nuvataranumanmahi Nirvyalikam
Asma Suvaya Uchitho Dhriyatham Sadando
Asma Suvayu Achito Dhriyatam Sadando
Asma Suvaya Uchitho Dhriyatham Sadando
Asma Suvaya Uchito Dhriyatam Sadando
Ye Nagasau Vayamayunkshmahi Kilvishena
Nagasau Vayamayunkshami Ayunkshmahi Kilbishena
Ye Nagasau Vayamayunkshmahi Kilvishena
Nagasau Vayamayunkshmahi Kilbishena
Yang Vanayardamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhatte
Yamvanayodhamamadhisha Bhavan Hidhate
Vrittim Nuvantar Anumanmahi Nirvyalikam
Vrittim Nuvatar Anumanmahi Nirvyalikam
Asma Suvaya Uchitho Dhriyatham Sadando
Asma Suvaya Uchito Dhriyatam Sadando
Ye Nagasau Vayamayunkshmahi Kilbishena
Nagasau Vayam Ayunksmahi Kilvishena
Yamvanayardamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhatte
Yamvanayodhamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhate
Vrittim Nuvatar Anumanmahi Nirvyalikam
Vrittim Nuvataranumanmahi Nirvyalikam
Asma Suvaya Uchitho Dhriyatham Sadando
Asma Suvaya Uchito Dhriyatam Sadando
Ye Nagasau Vayamayunkshmahi Kilbishena
Ye Nagasau Vayamanyukshmahi Kilbashena.
Please kindly repeat.
Yamvanayodhamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhate
Yamvanayardamamadhisha Bhavan Vidhatte
Vrittim Nuvataranumanmahi Nirvyalikam
Vrittim Nuvataranumanmahi Nirvyalikam
Asma Suvaya Uchito Dhriyatam Sadando
Asma Suvaya Uchitho Dhriyatham Sadando
Ye Nagasau Vayamanyukshmahi Kilbashena.
Ye Nagasau Vayamayunkshmahi Kilbishena. Anyone else? Yum, which. Va, or. Anayoho,
Anayoho,
of both of them.
both of them.
Damam,
Damam,
punishment.
punishment.
Adhisha,
Adhisha,
O Lord.
Lord.
Havan,
Bhavan,
your lordship.
your lordship.
Vidhate,
Vidhate,
awards.
awards.
Vritim,
Vritim,
better existence.
better existence.
Nu,
No,
certainly.
certainly.
Ah,
Va,
or.
or.
Tat,
That,
that.
that.
Anuman mahi,
Anuman Mahi,
we accept.
we accept.
Nirvyalikam,
Nirvyalikam,
without duplicity.
without duplicity.
Asmasu,
Asmasu,
to us.
to us.
Va,
Va,
or.
or.
Yaha,
Yaha,
whichever.
whichever.
Uchitaha
Uchitaha
is proper.
is proper.
Driyatam
Driyatam
may be awarded.
may be awarded.
Saha,
Saha,
that.
that.
Dandaha,
Dandaha,
punishment.
punishment.
Ye,
Ye,
who.
who.
Anagasau,
Nagasau,
sinless.
sinless.
Vayam,
Bayam,
Vayam, we.
we.
Ayunkshmahi,
Ayuksmahi,
allotted.
allotted.
Kilbishena,
Upashena,
with a curse.
because.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons, or also to us, we shall accept without duplicity. We understand that we have cursed two faultless persons. Purport. The sages, the four Kumars, now reject their cursing of the two doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, because they are now conscious that persons who engage in the service of the Lord cannot be at fault at any stage. It is said that anyone who has implicit faith in the service of the Lord, or who actually engages in transcendental loving service, has all the good qualities of the demigods. Therefore, a devotee cannot be at fault. If sometimes it is found that he is in error by accident or by some temporary arrangement, that should not be taken very seriously. The cursing of Jai and Vijay is here repented. Now the Kumars are thinking in terms of their position in the modes of passion and ignorance, and they are prepared to accept any kind of punishment from the Lord. In general, when dealing with devotees, we should not try to find faults. In Bhagavad Gita, also it is confirmed that the devotee who faithfully serves the Supreme Lord, even if found to commit a gross mistake, should be considered a sadhu or saintly person. Due to former habits, he may commit some wrong, but because he is engaged in the service of the Lord, that wrong should not be taken very seriously. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yana Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Atah Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vashakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandhu Jagat Pite Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Varshabhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakal Patrubhyascha Kripasan Triyevacha Patithanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane Namaste Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Shutarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Yamgana yordamama dishapa bande datte vritim no vatar anuman mahinir vyalikam asmasu va yauchitodri atamza dando ye nagasau vayama yongshmahikilipishena. Translation, O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons or also to us, we shall accept without duplicity. We understand that we have cursed two faultless persons. I'm hearing myself echo, so whoever's playing that could kindly mute themselves. Okay. So, we're seeing the four Kumars again. They're due to the mercy of the Lord, due to His appearance, which is all purifying. The four Kumars are now conscious of the fact that they've made a mistake, as is pointed out in the first sentence of the purport today, and they're feeling some regret for their activity. Now, of course, in this case, we're seeing that the Lord's mercy is coming in the form of them recognizing their mistake so that they can rectify their behavior and go on. We see that the Lord's mercy is manifest in a lot of different ways, of course. One can't even attain success in the material world without having the Lord's mercy. There's another example, just a little later, we see in Canto 4, with Dhruva Maharaj. He goes to the forest and he executes these austerities, and upon pleasing the Lord, and also, of course, he appears to be disrupting and upsetting the universe, and the demigods complain about this, and then Lord Vishnu says, I'll go handle the situation, to which he goes and sees Dhruva Maharaj. And upon seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing Lord Vishnu, Dhruva Maharaj, he sees the Lord and he wants to glorify him, but he's not able to compose such nice prayers. It's described that he's in an awkward position because of his young age. And Lord Vishnu, realizing or seeing this, he touches his conch to Dhruva Maharaj's forehead. And after that, Dhruva Maharaj is given the ability to compose very nice prayers in glorification of the Supreme Lord. So we see in that case even that the mercy was required even in order to properly glorify the Lord. So we require the mercy of the Lord in order to do all things. Again, the Lord is supreme, and so he's also supreme pure. We see that he's able to purify the four Kumaras of their this contamination by the modes of passion and ignorance. He's able to purify them at the point that he's giving them his association. Now we see that, of course, association. It's one of the founding points. By good association one can be affected, and by bad association one can be affected, and also vice versa. One can give their association to somebody else and also elevate them or degrade them accordingly. So the whole premise, especially Prabhupada made this point multiple times. He makes this point so many times, especially throughout his books, conversations. The whole premise of this Krishna conscious movement is to not take the association of others, but to give our association to other people. Because the idea is not to be influenced by worldly-minded individuals, but to actually give, again, to elevate society, and then give people a process by which they can also do the same and apply it in their own lives. And you can't very well induce people to take up a practice if you're very much bent on taking their ideas and trying to, rather than, again, give your association, be more concerned about taking theirs as well. Taking that association. So, again, the whole point being to lead the general public. Now, in this connection, I wanted to pull up, this is Gita, Bhagavad Gita 3:25. There's a point about understanding the position of the people in general, those who are in ignorance and those who are learned, and those who are in knowledge. It's Saktaf, what is it? Saktaf, I wanted to try to remember it before I pulled it up. Saktaf karamanya vidvangso yatha karvanti bharata kuryad vidvang tatha saktaf shchakirshur lokasangraham. That as the ignorant perform their duties without attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. If we look at the translation, Loka Sangraham, that comes up in previous verses as well, when Arjuna is being instructed by Krishna to act in a manner that will lead the other people in general. Again, that point kind of being expanded upon, where I've heard this point come up in other devotees' classes as well, about having a proper guide in society, or having proper role models, proper inspiration to guide individuals on how to act in society. So externally, one might be engaged in the same activity as somebody else who's attached to that activity, but their mood, that consciousness is completely different for somebody who's actually in Krishna consciousness. So you can't expect to lead Loka Sangraham, the people in general, if you're trying to take inspiration from them as well. And we look, the position of people in general, specifically people in this day and age, is very clearly and accurately described just in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, within some of the first few verses. Prayena alpaya shabdya kalav asmin yuge janaha manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hupadrataha. Translation: O learned one, in this age of Kali, men almost always have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So the point is that you can't. Why would anybody want to associate with such people? And I kind of wanted to cover, especially just this point about association, because if you don't associate with sadhus and with if you don't take proper association, you're going to be forced to associate with something or somebody else, and with basically the modes. If we can't understand and appreciate what's being given and follow that process and take that instruction, one will be forced to basically take instruction from the three modes of material nature, whether they're conscious of it or not. So a couple points I want to point on this purport. And I remember, I don't know if Rishi Kumar, you remember, Rishi Kumar Prabhu and we had gone on TSKP, I think this was last year, and I had just started reading the first canto of the Bhagavatam, and we sat for it was some time, we were reading, and I was just we were going through Prabhupada's purports, and I remember just being really amazed, and I really appreciated us sitting down and kind of reading it together. Cause I was just reading it. It's Prabhupada so accurately in just a couple of paragraphs will sum up so many aspects of society. And I was reading this and was this is amazing. It's just nectar.
That's fire.
Yeah, it was so fired up. And I remember asking you oh, well, I know you're a lot farther in Bhagavatam. Are you sure you want to read with me? You're just it's nectar. Why wouldn't I want to sit and read?
That was your mercy upon me to let me read with you.
No. It's your mercy upon me. Also, you reading Ramayana. Ada! I remember also we were reading Ramayana. I fell asleep listening to Rishi Kumar Prabhu read the Ramayana, and that was one of the most nectar things ever. I fell asleep.
Fell asleep at the most action-packed part of the Ramayana.
Yeah, I don't know how.
In the car?
No, we were
While you're driving?
no.
Yeah, while he was driving.
Thank God, no. Otherwise, I think we were in the hotel room, and I think you said I fell asleep like with like a smile on my face. I was like blissed out. Like it was the Yakshas, no, the Rakshasas,
Like 9,000 Rakshasas, Lord Rama's destroying them.
like mowing them down. It was like such nectar. I remember like hearing that. I was like, gosh, this is like better than anything I ever watched or like read as a Karmi. Um, so, anyways, yeah, there's like so much nectar in the Bhagavatam. I remember like I instantly thought about that when I pulled up this verse. 'Cause I remember like going through these purports and just like for the first time, it's like, oh my God, like this is like so spot on. So there's a couple points I want to cover or go over that Prabhupada very nicely elaborates, and I guess in these purports. I'll get to it. The devotees of the Lord are always anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public. When the sages of Naimisharanya analyzed the state of affairs of the people in this age of Kali, they foresaw that men would live short lives. In Kali Yuga, the duration of life is shortened not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. By keeping regular habits and eating simple food, any man can maintain his health. Overeating, over sense gratification, over dependence on another's mercy, and artificial standards of living sap the very vitality of human energy. Therefore, the duration of life is shortened. The people of this age are also very lazy, not only materially, but in the matter of self-realization. At this point, anyways, this was like a side note. I thought this sentence was especially like interesting because it's an Ugra karmic civilization, and you see that people are very much fired up for sense gratification still. But I guess at least I took it to there's a lot of, I guess the general public, they are like pretty moded out, you could say. It's there's a few people at the very top generally who are like making things move, and then they have I guess on par with Shudras, like people who are just like below them, and they're working them in that manner. But there's like, I guess, a very small mass of people like at the top who are like driving this. But in general, people are like actually incredibly lazy and like really motored out. Even though, despite the fact that it's like we see that everybody is still to some degree fired up for sense gratification. Anyways, that's just a side point. I'm going to go on. The human life is especially meant for self-realization. That is to say, man should come to know what he is, what the world is, and what the supreme truth is. Human life is a means by which the living entity can end all the miseries of the hard struggle for life in material existence, and by which he can return to Godhead, his eternal home. But due to a bad system of education, men have no desire for self-realization. Even if they come to know about it, they unfortunately become victims of misguided teachers. In this age, again, not having proper role models, and then a proper guide or proper foundation on which that knowledge is coming from, or I guess to say, it's all concocted. It's all just like mental speculation. Things they teach you in the textbook today is going to be debunked 5-10 years later because they came up with a better theory. In this age, men are victims not only of different political creeds and parties, but also of many different types of sense gratificatory diversions such as cinemas, sports, gambling, clubs, mundane libraries, bad associations, smoking, drinking, cheating, pilfering, bickerings, and so on. Their minds are always disturbed and full of anxieties due to so many different engagements. In this age, many unscrupulous men manufacture their own religious faiths, which are not based on any revealed scriptures, and very often people who are addicted to sense gratification are attracted by such institutions. It's almost over, unfortunately. Consequently, in the name of religion, so many sinful acts are being carried on that the people in general have neither peace of mind nor health of body. The student, or the brahmachari, communities are no longer being maintained, and householders do not observe the rules and regulations of the grihastha ashram. Consequently, the so-called vanaprats and sannyasis have come out of such grihastha ashrams, are easily deviated from the rigid path. In the Kali Yuga, the whole atmosphere is surcharged with faithlessness. Men are no longer interested in spiritual values. Material sense gratification is now the standard of civilization. For the maintenance of such material civilizations, man has formed complex nations and communities, and there's a constant strain of hot and cold wars between these different groups. It has become very difficult, therefore, to raise the spiritual standard due to the present distorted values of human society. The sages of Naimisharanya are anxious to disentangle all fallen souls, and here they are seeking the remedy of Srila Sutta Goswami. So a couple main points I want to speak about. One, that you see just off the rip, the devotees of the Lord are always anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public because their situation is so poor. You know, it's like, I remember Rishi Kumar very nicely explaining like this, you know, karmis, they wake up, it's like, and immediately everything they do is just like, immediately is sinful. Whether it's like they wake up, I mean, depending on like what somebody's inclinations are, they might have you know, some weed rolls that they'll just like wake up and immediately they begin smoking that. And if they're not doing that, a lot of people, they're at least going and like preparing a cup of coffee. It's like they're doing, there's no sort of regulation within any of it at all either. It's like, you know, just pretty much, maybe if you're going to work, maybe you're getting about the same time every day, but just, you know, do whatever you want, whatever the senses are telling you to do. It's like, I feel like I need my cup of Joe a little earlier than usual. I'm just going to go ahead and take it because you just can't control the tongue. It's like there's no sort of regulation at all within modern society. I thought it was a really interesting point that Prabhupada makes, especially in this purport, that in Kali Yuga the duration of life is shortened not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. And he says that he harps on the importance of eating simple food and keeping and maintaining regular habits. Generally, especially in the like modern health spheres, like, or I guess in the health industry, you could say like, there's so much emphasis on eating the right foods and getting a good mix. And growing up, we learn about the food pyramid and having a diverse, you know, mix of grains and vegetables and fruit and whatnot. But you don't very much hear about having a regulated lifestyle. What to speak of eating at the same time or eating at the right time, doing things at the right time. You know, regulation is not generally looked at to be a, how do I put it? I guess a huge contributing factor to one's health, but it's like actually incredibly important. I remember coming into Krishna consciousness, hearing about that. I'm like, wow, I guess like that makes sense. But you don't generally hear that in Karma society, because again, everything is completely and totally misguided. Now, the distorted values that Prabhupada speaks about, I mean, he harps on it all throughout the purport, and then he sums it up. He says that because of all this in the state of society, it's become very difficult, therefore, to raise the spiritual standard due to the present distorted values of human society. So, again, you look at these, like I pull up this purport because this sums up the people in general. It sums up Loka Sangraham, the same people that we should be very wary of associating with. And then you have like, unfortunately, so many people in our movement who, because they're not reading Prabhupada's books, they're not recognizing the state of civilization, they're taking inspiration from it and then trying to pull it into Prabhupada's movement and establish these things like it's going to expand preaching or cause whatever sort of benefit. I don't know what good people are thinking can like, what good can come from associating with such people. If one actually took a proper assessment of the state of affairs, there's so many things that are just like wrong with society that one should like recognize, like, okay, yeah, there shouldn't be some inspiration to either to associate with them, what to speak of drawing inspiration from them, from the same misguided lens that they view the world through. This is the purport to 325 I wanted to pull up. It talks about a person in Krishna consciousness and a person who's not in Krishna consciousness. They're differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to the development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activities, but one who is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. So, again, there's a reason as to why, Prabhupada didn't advocate for people to get involved in politics, what to speak of allowing politics to creep into the movement in and of itself. I remember hearing Chandanacharya Prabhu speak on this, or make this point, or maybe it was Vishnu Chitta Prabhu, or both. Maybe one said and the other elaborated on it. But a lot of the problems that you look at within the movement are generally social. And a lot of the issues or difficulty that will come in establishing, especially Varnashram Dharma, especially in the West, or just in general, is largely social. Now, again, you see that devotees I was surprised, I guess, hearing, because, you come in, and at least in my case, I come into Krishna consciousness, I already didn't really like being on social media and this, that, the other, so now I just, had that much more of a reason not to be aware so much of what's going on in the world. Politically, I wasn't really I didn't really care for it. I always thought that generally, more or less whoever gets elected, it doesn't really practically change too much for people, generally. But anyways, what to speak of, when you come into Krishna consciousness, and then there's a philosophical basis that is given, where it's directly stated that, or it's made clear that you can't solve material problems with material solutions. So therefore, why would devotees involve themselves with politics, like these people who are far outside of Vedic conception, who are not under any proper authority, and have no qualities to be leaders in society? Why would anybody think that they're going to make some positive change for the world? But still, you see that devotees are involved in politics, and then you also see that politics are coming into the movement itself, where we're finding people are divided, whether it's due to, again, some left-wing, right-wing, whatever disagreements and whatnot, or especially as it's been really coming to a head now, though this has been described to be going on for years, this disagreement over FTG, which is really a nonsense thing altogether. And we see especially that ideas like this, it's inspired by what? Such an ugra karmic civilization, which doesn't understand the importance of protecting women, doesn't understand the importance of acting, you could say, I guess, yes, in a traditional role, but acting and performing the prescribed duties that's laid out in Shastra so that one can, in a regulated manner, live their life without just accruing sin only. So it's really unfortunate. I just every time practically, if we meet somebody, whether it's on books or if they come here or if they came to the temple in the past, whatever, if we meet somebody and they're like, oh yeah, I go to ISKCON, generally that's immediate, just damn. They probably have have a lot of misconceptions, or maybe they've been around and they've gone around, or they've gone to some center, and then they just don't know the philosophy at all. They just will be yeah, I've been going to ISKCON for 5 years and I think everything's one. It's what the hell happened? It's it's crazy that when you, it's almost, at least in my experience, when you meet people who have never met somebody who's from ISKCON or haven't generally met devotees or whatever, it's like a fresh slate. That's easier than when you have somebody who and it's unfortunate that that's the case. It's people who have gone to centers that have been established by Srila Prabhupada, and they've met people who are, I guess, devotees, and they're wearing tilak and whatnot, but there's these huge disconnects and gaps in their understanding that it's oh my gosh, it's how, I don't understand how that happens. We just had a guy who came recently. What was his name? anyways, I guess it's probably, yeah, anyways. So this guy came, he's sweet. It's an older, middle-aged guy. He apparently is known about, Krishna consciousness for some time. He's gone to temples. He actually was leading, apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, a garden project at one of these centers. I think it was, anyways, I'm not going to say where it was because I don't honestly remember. But he was like involved in in some project like at the temple. So it's not just like he's like a regular congregation, like just like come on a Sunday program, just take prasad and like go type thing. Like he's like around at least. He's been to Mangalarti. You would expect this guy, and he knows some aspects. I guess like he seems he's read Prabhupada's books, or at least like maybe not in full, but there's some like awareness of the philosophy. But still, so many misconceptions are there, and he doesn't know like a lot of things, even though he's been going to the center. He's been around devotees. It's like what's going on, and that's like again a common thing that you're seeing. It's like people who are coming into association. We're seeing that generally it's not proper association. But why is that association not proper if even though these people, they're wearing tilak, they're chanting Hare Krishna, they're staying at the temple, and maybe they're going every single day, they're performing service or whatever. It's like, what the hell is going on? Like, why is there so much of a disconnect? And largely you can see it's because, it's a number of different problems. It's a huge thing. You go really deep into it. I think it's some basic points that obviously people, they're not, it's too much being influenced and inspired by material civilization, but above all, it's not taking association from the pure devotee, from Prabhupada by his books. Just as Krishna, or just as the Supreme Lord purifies by his association, the pure devotee does the same thing. So we see that in today's verse, that again, the four Kumars are able to now be conscious that they've done wrong. But that came as a result of the mercy of the Supreme Lord and being purified by by these lower natures. So I guess similarly we look at people today. It's like instead of we're not seeing people, I guess, be purified, so to speak, by associating with Prabhupada, who's clearly such an exalted personality, because they're not reading his books, and by reading his books and by associating with his instruction, one becomes purified. So if that doesn't happen, it's like we can't expect to have an effect, have a positive effect on, again, the people in general, loka sangraham, the average, misguided, lazy Kali Yuga reject. And it's not to denigrate them. Because hell, we should also recognize we also came in Kali Yuga, and yes, but and we're fallen, of course. Not to be like, yes, these people are so low and whatnot. The point isn't to denigrate these people for their position, but the devotee recognizes, again, not just his position, but everybody's position, and wants to elevate them out of that. So if there's really a clear understanding of our position in the material world, our position in Kali Yuga, then a desire to not just lift ourselves out of that, but then also to lift others out of that should manifest. Just like I think we were discussing the other day about, I think just about along the lines of like humility. I was saying like it's so interesting. You might meditate, for example, on like Ternadapi Suni Chena Torori Vasahishna, being lower than a blade of grass and being more tolerant than a tree, and really imbibing this humble mood, for example. But then it's like a couple of days go by, and it's like I'm just like right back to whatever demonic tendencies. It's like just so easily, just find ourselves being pulled. There's a reason I wanted to pull. I was referencing that. I wanted to go somewhere with that. What was the point I was trying to make with that? I guess I was saying, like, it's like, so you might do this, and then it's like immediately you fall back into, your lower tendencies or bad habits, and it's like, why is it like this? And like, is it insincerity? Is it lack of? Is it just like, just being a kanishta, lack of practice, lack of realization? I think, especially it kind of just dawned on me. I'm like, well, I guess I really haven't actually understood my position. We might have knowledge. It's just like that. You have knowledge, and you have jnana, you have vijnana. It's like, and even if you might have theoretical knowledge, actually like realizing that it's a completely different thing. So the point being that just as if one really actually understood their position and how fallen they were, then that should manifest as humility, because there's like a proper understanding that comes about upon realizing that. So similarly, I'm saying like if there was a real understanding and some proper realization that was being born as a result of associating with pure devotees' instruction, then that should manifest in a desire to actually lead people properly. So we're seeing that the effects of giving up such association, even within our own movement, unfortunately. I had a couple other verses actually I'm going to pull up on specifically associating with this modern civilization. This is CC Madhya Lila 22, text 87. A Vaishnav should always avoid the association of ordinary people. Common people are very much materially attached, especially to women. Vaishnavas should avoid the company of those who are not devotees of Lord Krishna. The next two verses, or I guess three actually, and this comes actually from Bhagavatam. This is quoted, and it's explained in the purport. This is Lord Kapiladev. He spoke this. So, by association with worldly people, one becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, fortune, and all opportunities. One should not at any time associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a toy animal in the hands of a woman. The illusion and bondage that accrue to a man from attachment to any other object are not as complete as that resulting from association with a woman or with men too attached to women. Then there's nectar of instruction. Just the first three. First three. Verses that are given. Atyahara praryasascha prajalpaniyam agrahaha jana sangash chalauriyam cha shadbhir bhakti vranashichi. Jana sangash. How do you highlight? Yeah, jana sangash. This devotional service is spoiled. One of the fifth thing that's stated, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. We look at the next text, and the exact same point is harped upon is made. God, that's a really long purport. Utsahan nishaya dharyat tatar karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vrate shadpir bhakti prasiddhyati. What's favorable to executing devotional service? Abandoning the association of non-devotees. So 2 times the same point is generally stated, but just differently. So our acharyas have very clearly stated and so many times made the point that association, it should be proper association that one's keeping. And one should not associate with worldly-minded individuals. Why? Because by associating with that, just as one can be elevated by good association, they can be degraded likewise. So again, twice that point is made. I thought about this. Navani Hoda Prabhu, when he gave class recently, he spoke about, this was a brief point he made about people who give up the association of devotees, or just give up all association and try to go practice on their own. And we see that that's also condemned by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He says that basically you'll just you meditate upon women and just want fame ultimately. You just, oh, wicked, well, I'll go through the Bengali. Dushtaman, tumi keshara Vaishnava, Pratishara tare nirjanera ghare, tava are naam kevala kaitha. Jadera pratishta shukarer vishta, jana na khithahe mayara vaibhav. Kanaka kamini divasa yamini, bhaviya ke khaja, anitya se saba. O wicked mind, what kind of Vaishnava do you think you are? Your pretentious show of chanting Lord Hari's holy name in a solitary place is only for the sake of attaining the false prestige of a worldly reputation. It is nothing but pure hypocrisy. Such materialistic prestige is as disgusting as the stool of a hog. Do you not know that it is only a mere illusion cast by the potency of Maya? What is the value of contemplating day and night your plans for enjoying wealth and women? All these things are temporary, he says. So, is not so. I mean, yeah, we should give up the association of worldly-minded individuals. We should take the association of devotees. And yeah, I guess the point being made here that one shouldn't then look down upon that devotee association, even if it's not the best or most ideal. One shouldn't give that up and then just try to go do their own thing on their own either. So that's also condemned. So the point being, that was a side point, but the main point being that when we give up proper association, especially of the pure devotee, we also begin to give up faith, and we can actually end up becoming very offensive, which is what we're seeing happen, especially today within the movement. With Prabhupada being viewed as like, it's being described like what? He's just like some old man who just said some things, and he actually got a lot of things wrong. He didn't know what he was saying because what he was saying was outdated. But he's speaking on the grounds of Shastra. And Shastra is apurashaya. Uncontaminated. Anyways, the Vedas are eternal, meaning it applies to past, present, future. It's like very basic points that people are missing, and because they're missing that and they're understating the position of the Acharya, they also then, as the point's been made before, they understate not just the Acharya's position, they understate the position of Shastra, and then they go as far as to begin becoming offensive to, I guess I'm going to stop sharing the screen, become offensive to those who are actually qualified to guide civilization. I mean, not just because they're scholarly, but I mean actually Brahminically qualified individuals who can guide the movement. We see people that just become offensive, all on the grounds of some nonsense. So that it's interesting in the purport for today's verse. It's stated not to. Sorry, pull this back up. The not finding fault within a devotee, even if they committed some grievous activity or some very gross activity. Now the Kumars are thinking in terms of their position in the modes of passion and ignorance, and they are prepared to accept any kind of punishment from the Lord. In general, Prabhupada says, in general, when dealing with devotees, we should not try to find faults. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also confirmed that the devotee who faithfully serves the Lord, even if found to commit a gross mistake, should be considered a sadhu, or saintly person. Due to former habits, he may commit some wrong, but because he is engaged in the service of the Lord, that wrong should not be taken very seriously. And it's interesting, I remember Guru Maharaj making, I think it was in that 5 series of videos that came up on the Indian Scholar Board, that, or maybe it was that shorter lecture on, I think it was FDG, like a major, it was like some major, it was like a 5-minute lecture. It was FTG. I don't remember what the other headline for it was. Maybe like some major discussion or major debate. And basically made the point, it's like you have both sides. You know, you have one side who's sitting here saying that they're following Srila following Srila Prabhupada, and this is what Prabhupada wanted. And the other side is saying this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted, and that we're right. And the other side is also saying that they're right. It's interesting. You might hear that come up on both sides. That again, we're the ones who are really trying to follow and do what Prabhupada wanted. This is really what Prabhupada wanted. But one side in saying that is very much, again, denigrating that position of the Acharya, but then still simultaneously claiming that they know how to represent him. So it's paradoxical. It's complete nonsense, and it's incredibly offensive. Also, I mean, how can Shabda is not to be it's our topmost pramana, that which comes from proper authority, and then to hear the words of a pure devotee, fully self-realized servant of the Lord, and then try to defend what he said as though he's some, again, as though he's like some externally old man who made some mistakes and doesn't know what he said. I mean, just as Chandan's brought this up so many times, it's like, if Prabhupada has hurt you or hurt your feelings, you should just forgive him. Find it in your heart to forgive him. It's like, no, you rascal, you should listen to what he's saying and recognize it's not like this. It's all on the mental platform. It's like, my feelings have been hurt, but you should recognize that Prabhupada actually not everything was right, you know. So, anyways, the point I guess I'm bringing up is that we shouldn't find fault in, I guess, devotees, and one could try to argue that, especially because a lot of what I've spoken on largely throughout the course of the class has been on so many nonsense things that go on in the name of devotional service. But I guess it should be understood that it's not like one should try to one shouldn't try to find faults, I guess. Even if there are some, one shouldn't necessarily go searching for them just so they can erode somebody's position, or just for the sake of, just pointing and pushing and being like, no, this person is not actually so exalted and this person is wrong. But very gross and clear deviations from Shastra and offensive statements and points, they have to be recognized, and it has to be pointed out. That's also a point that's made by Guru Maharaj. I think it's that lecture. It's like, shh, don't make offenses, because it's like people are so scared of, because they don't know right from wrong, and they don't have the intelligence to actually discriminate between right and wrong. It's just, no, you're just going to be offensive. Don't be offensive. Don't be offensive. But in fear of being offensive, nobody actually nobody corrects philosophical deviations, clear philosophical deviations that are being had within the movement. So it's there that we shouldn't try to find faults, but deviations that are like so clear in Siddhanta that are clear and can misguide not just people within the movement, but then misguide people who come into the movement also. It has to be rectified. It has to be called out. Why? Because, again, devotees are supposed to be anxious for the spiritual upliftment of the entire society. And you can't do that if you're taking people off course, actually. So, yeah, that's there. I guess that was like the main couple things I want to cover. That when you stop associating with sadhus, you're just forced to basically to maybe take lower association. But it's one thing to fall. It's one thing to fall out of It's one thing to fall out of good association, but it's another to become inimical and envious, and then start to disregard it as just being like some mundane, thing, and not actually recognize what is proper association and what's not. And we see that's like completely until you just like turn on its freaking head. There was one other point I was. Yeah, I guess I'll speak on this. I was a little hesitant actually to bring it up. This had come up in somebody's very interesting take on their experience, I guess, being in the Krishna conscious movement. And there's a lot of different angles, I guess, you could take on this, but I'll bring it up because I thought it was an interesting take for a number of reasons. I found this I think it was maybe some weeks ago, actually. Again, I looked up something, and for some reason, I looked up something about like the history of the movement, and information on that thing again took me to like ex Hare Krishna, and there was somebody who was in this in this Reddit that made this very amazing analysis on the situation, I guess, within I guess the ISKCON center that they went to. It wasn't named, but they basically claimed that the Krishna consciousness movement in the West, not in the West, it just, again, said the Krishna consciousness movement. From when you go through the post, again, like largely almost everybody who's in there, it's all Westerners. It's largely all Westerners devoid of culture and unable to like recognize that it's not the practice that's wrong, it's the people who generally try to implement it. But anyways, so I thought this was interesting. So there was I don't know if anybody's heard of the Madonna, excuse my language, it's called the Madonna whore complex. So this apparent complex that's described, it's really amazing. So get this, it's by Sigmund Freud, and it's predicated on the idea that men put women basically into mutually exclusive categories. Mutually exclusive meaning it can only be one or the other, basically. That they're either viewed as a mother, and they're saintly and they're to be respected, and they're to be protected, they're worthy of protection, or they're just a whore, and they're basically condemned, they shouldn't be associated with, but there's an undercurrent of attraction still to that, even though it's like socially unacceptable and it's like wrong. I thought it was interesting because anyways, the whole idea is complete nonsense anyways to speak of, because again, this is coming from Sigmund Freud. He's the same guy who also came up with the Oedipus complex, which is the idea that you actually, even if you view someone as your mother, you inherently, you want to have sex with that person actually, which is just complete nonsense. That whole idea is based on his own childhood experience actually. So anyways, just see the type of the qualification of the person who's being quoted here for this idea, I guess, to sum up the position in one of these ISKCON centers. So anyways, as the whole thing goes, it is basically stated that because men have this complex to either place women in the category of a mother or a whore, there's this sexual frustration that comes as a result of that. Because again, Freud's whole idea is that we have this sexual inclination, and if you bottle it and you don't release it and you don't act on that impulse, then it's like so many different problems are going to come about. So you should be free, and you should let go and act on that impulse. Animal platform, basically, is what he's advocating here. And this person who made this post, I thought it was interesting. They claim that this dynamic claim is especially present in ISKCON, where you have men who, again, they're viewing women as just objects for sense gratification, or no, the philosophy condemns that, but because of how strong Shastra speaks about women, and because they're not looking at it in proper light on how to actually practically interact with women, and how to view them and how to treat them, and recognizing that all women are mothers, and they're not to be treated with disrespect, and it's to be seen that even though, yes, we're all spirit, soul, and we're not the body and whatnot, but still there has to be some discrimination on a practical standpoint. This person basically was claiming, it's like, Prabhupada was hateful of women, and he didn't know what he was talking about, and all these other people who were in the center. And there's some other aspects of that post that were shared. It's like some improper things that were also done on that behalf. It's a pretty nuanced situation, but the whole point, just being, it's like when you don't can like recognize the authority of Shastra, and like you don't look at these things in proper light, and it's like you just get all these nonsense ideas, and it's like from Freud of all people. It's like anyways, it's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, so many things can be said on that, like about maybe the.
You gotta finish up, so open it for questions. It's 8:42.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Generally, I don't go over, but sorry. Anyways, I guess last ending point I'll make that yeah, it's there. There was a couple other things actually I wanted to like just go over. I guess like the whole nonsense idea about the complex in and of itself, and then just speak on some other elements that are also there to consider. But anyways, I guess for the sake of timing, sorry for going over. I'll go ahead and open up for questions now. So
One thing I just want to make a point. In this purport, the problem seems to be making.
Hard to hear.
Can you hear? Can you hear?
If you're a little closer, we can hear you.
There you go.
In this purport, Srila Prabhupada's mainly making the point, it seems, of kind of those devotees who are both engaging in devotional service properly, but there's some disagreement. Because Jai and the Kumars didn't particularly associate with any karmis or like people who are like outside of devotional service.
no, I definitely wasn't.
No, I know you weren't making that point, but that's the point that's being made in Prabhupada's purport here, it seems. Because Kumars, they're all, they became attracted to the Lord, but there's a reason Srila Prabhupada straight saying all this. He's mentioning the point that it's not due to our bad association currently, it's due to our past influence of modes of passion and ignorance that are still lingering. So a lot of the purport is actually between the behavior of one Vaishnava towards another Vaishnava, and if you can kind of read on, that's what it's mostly about in terms of, and that's there within Krishna consciousness. People take all these ideas, but this specifically seems to be hitting the point on how devotees should see each other and treat each other, not so much like associating with the materialists and getting their qualities, but that actually they're still in a devotee. Even though we don't associate with them, we still have those things, and they may turn up and we may see like that. Just kind of a point there. It just kind of seems, I'm not sure, maybe I wasn't listening too much, but there's a lot of points that are more on point of like how a devotee should actually be conscious of his actions and seeing how the devotee. We see that many times that some devotees, even amongst the pure devotees, there's argument. Even amongst devotees who are like, in the spiritual world, the Radha's party, and then there is Chandravali's party, and they don't agree with each other. And then within Krishna consciousness, there are, different groups that, they're both performing pure devotional service, but they may criticize a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So there is, in here, Prabhupada specifically seems to be mentioning those devotees who are trying to perform devotional service sincerely, as Prabhupada begins the purport with. Persons who are engaged in the service of the Lord cannot be at fault at any stage. So it mainly seems to be here that Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing that how one should see the other devotees of the Lord and how one can go on performing devotional service without performing offenses. There is a side of that, but in here Srila Prabhupada doesn't specifically state anything about asanga, asatsanga tyagi e vaishnavachar, that taking wrong association. Of course, that's always a point, but the specific point here is, of course, of understanding where we're at and how we should reconcile ourselves when difficult situations come up. Kumaras, what happened? They committed some offense, but then they took a little time to think when they saw the Lord and realized they made an offense due to their past or lingering passions and ignorances, you know. So that kind of seems to be the emphasis from my understanding. I don't know, maybe you didn't, of course, you didn't make any points that were like wrong. There was nothing wrong with what you said at all. It's all, you know, quoting Bhagavatam, and it's pretty ecstatic.
I didn't stick directly to the point.
Yeah, it's important we stick directly to the purport because, you know, there's a lot there to kind of bring out. You know, there's a lot there that Srila Prabhupada is speaking that are important in our lives and how we should function. Of course, everything you said is completely important, but in relation to the purport, how do we make sure that we're on par, you know? So, because it's important that we don't just get on the consciousness of, okay, they're doing it wrong, and they're being offensive to Srila Prabhupada. That's there. But here we're talking about, okay, Kumars are doing it right, and you know, Jai and Vijay are also doing it right. They're doing their duty, and Kumars, they're just a little fried out. So there's like a constant contrast going on throughout all of these verses and purports. Like sometimes Srila Prabhupada says, well, Jai and Vijay were wrong, and then sometimes we hear like, okay, Kumars were wrong in doing it. And so it's just interesting that now here is more of focus in those devotees who are trying sincerely to serve the Lord, and in their sincere service, there's always some tension. That's just how life works. Even in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, there's always tension. There's always tension, and because we're different personalities and we have different ways of serving the Lord, and you know, so there's always, and then combined with the influence of modes of passion and ignorance, we can fall into making slight offenses, and then Srila Prabhupada is giving us how to make sure we don't do that. So it's just kind of making sure we stick along the lines, because sometimes we can get, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, what is Srila Prabhupada's, whatever you said, again, there's nothing wrong with what you said at all. There's no oppositantic or anything like that. But it's just more of the point of like keeping within the lines of, and the subject matter and the overall theme that is going on here, so we can dive into the, you know, apply it to our lives. Mm-hmm. That's because ultimately the purpose of everything we speak is in order to apply it to our lives and try to, maybe we can apply it, maybe we don't have the ability to do that yet, but at least to be able to like deeply think about these subject matters in relationship how the Bhagavatam is teaching us. The Bhagavatam is teaching us with every verse how to act in our life in very specific detail. So then you can bring out that nectar. It's very nice. And anyways, more, just some of the points you're making. Although within our centers it's widely known now when we travel that there is a lack of philosophy, it is also to be noted that certain persons, they'll just not understand no matter how many times you explain it. So it's important to recognize that the devotees may not be at fault for that. For example, we've had a Sunday program running for 3-4 years, and people come and they still think that we're all one. They still think that service to humanity and society is the ultimate goal of my life. And they just won't let it go, no matter how many times. Does that mean we're bogus? No. We've explained our bit, we've done our piece, but they're not able to understand. What can you do? Eat prasadam, that's all. So, and then there's certain persons that maybe they're like, he's a gardener. Doesn't mean he has to learn the philosophy. He was the head of the gardening department. They let him do that. He's like a woofer. We don't care. You know, if a woofer doesn't particularly understand Krishna consciousness and has his misconceptions, as long as he doesn't propagate those misconceptions to others around him, it's like, okay, what to do. Eventually they leave. But the point is that devotees may be teaching correctly, but it may also be the people not understanding. Now, of course, there's a lot of cases in which, you know, devotees also don't want to teach and they also don't want to learn. Both are there. It's a two-way street. And so it's just important to recognize that although our centers do have, there's still many centers within North America where there is really nice devotees that are guiding people nicely. Just like I know in DC, there's one devotee, and I'm in touch with this young boy, and he's getting, you know, he doesn't have any crazy, you know, whatever, not that maybe his misconception is like, but, you know, he's chanting Hare Krishna, and he's looking like he knows about the 4 regular principles, and He knows that he has to read Prabhupada's books. And of course, there's other powerful things here and there. But there's also the sincerity of the followers. Just like we all, a lot of us came through the ISKCON program. Some of us, I guess now. But, we had some level of sincerity to take up, have the desire to take up devotional service seriously. So Krishna gives us according to what we want. And so the level of our sincerity. So we see that it's not just completely on the institution often also. I've seen that just because of my experience in preaching. It's just you explain so many things to someone and they just don't get it. Just don't get it. So there is that side of things that we should be a little careful with how critical we are sometimes. Just not that we're like, oh no, everything is good. No, but there is a level of that people just don't understand. Even if there is a qualified preacher in a center and he's preaching, there's a certain people that just will not they're just so much in the mode of ignorance. So it's just a point to kind of, while we do see a lot of powerful things in the movement, there is also very good things in the movement that are going on. It's not all, it's not all bad. We see, in LA, there's, Srila Prabhupada's disciples distributing books going on. There's different centers in which there's of course always that end of it where things are not perfect. But you also got to realize they've been running sometimes for 20, 30 years, and after 20, 30 years, there is a lot of things that are powerful, and a lot of people that are powerful. We've only been running for 4 or 5 years, and there has been some powerful stuff, but it's very small compared to 40 years. We're on 4 years. So there's a lot of complexities, actually, when it comes to understanding all this. Nonetheless, there is, of course, like I was saying, that there's a level of deviation from Srila Prabhupada's original idea and purpose, and we should criticize that. But at the same time, we should also see sometimes that it's not the case all the time.
Well, in that case, I'm sorry. I apologize for. This is, like you said, it's super complex, and with intelligence and motive passion, zoned in on very small aspects of it, and did not give a complete picture, and I apologize for that. And I mean, anyways, I think that points also. It takes intelligence and the mode of goodness to be able to look at look at things from a holistic perspective, and like recognize, like, okay, you should see these things in proper light. I wasn't trying to. I feel it's funny because it talks about not trying to find faults in devotees. In the crux of the class, I gave.
Yeah, I was just like, dude.
But I mean, I guess so. Then my question is like, okay, so we shouldn't try to find faults in others, but then also, like I was saying, like there has to be correction, also that's there, and that has to be recognized. Like at what point, like Prabhupada might say, okay, these people are devotees because they chant Hare Krishna. These people are devotees because they have pure love of Krishna. It's like, and those are actually like practically two completely different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But so externally, I guess, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Within our situations, like we have, I was trying to, I guess, like speak more on like the current, I guess, state of affairs you could say within the movement. You might have, it's all devotees who are involved, but it's like, there's a difference between where those devotees might fall into.
I don't know who told Pranam. I don't know who says this. I don't know if Guru Maharaj says, or just maybe it's just devotees from Krishna Life, Mahota, you, Vishnu. I don't know. But one really thing that like helped me is they said that we should speak according to like what we know in realization, because like these topics about ISKCON and like it's a big topic, the female FDGs and all these things, and there's so many complexities that if, at least my opinion is, I don't know so much about it to like such an extent. If you don't really know the ins and outs of it, it's hard to really get into it and explain it so well. It's so at least a devotee told me that, just like according to your realizations, speak on that, and it helps a lot actually, because these are really big topics, and if you don't, it's hard to really explain all the intricacies of all these things properly.
The main thing here is that criticism is only done when it's required, in terms of that. Okay, if the purport was speaking on it, there'd be no problem. But if the purport is not speaking on it, specifically, and then we're just making that point. And it may be a side point, that's fine, but if it just, that's the whole point of the class, but it's not particularly on the purport, then it can become like, okay, are we just bashing ISKCON? Or are we just doing that, and is that the purpose of the class, or are we just trying to show it better? Or it's just, we got to be a little careful and not get, like you're saying, get carried away. And it's important to speak on these topics, but they're spoken in particular reference, and to learn to get something out of it. Very, I'm just saying, whatever you spoke is not that anything is wrong, but in terms of relationship with the purport, there's little, it's a little, there's more in line, the purport, not in line in terms of philosophy.
I understand.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things going on that are powerful, and we discussed them. We've discussed them when things have come up. But yeah, it's just important to, at the same time, recognize that the whole society, that there is still, Srila Prabhupada's movement is still alive, even within some of the things that are going on. That it is taken some level of divergence, but actually the people that are very expensive and all of these, they're actually a smaller portion of the people within our society that are misguiding the rest of the society. So actually, most of the society, as Srila Prabhupada often said, is innocent. They're not against Srila Prabhupada, or they're not against the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, but there's a few on top who are against that. And so it's just important to recognize generally the leaders are to blame for the problematic situation. And we see it. We go around, we meet people, and it's not that they're like devotees that are like looking to just like, they're just, some of them are not, a lot of them are sincere, and some of them are just being misguided or have not been told the right things. And when they're told the right things, and then they take to it, they just like, I'm seeing that with Vishnuchitta Prabhu is in New Govardhan. There's things that are like not exactly full on, like we wouldn't agree with, but when instructed, those younger devotees, they take that advice, and they're not envious of the principles. And so there is a lot of devotees who are just misguided in the movement more than like, and just they didn't have the training that we fortunately got. So there's just that aspect of it. We've just got to recognize that. That's all.
To that point, Prabhu, about again not speaking on that which we don't know. And I again, I had no intention of trying. I was hesitant to bring it up to begin with. So like generally, like I hear it. It might come up in some classes. Again, you made the point that I largely missed, so that it comes up when it's relevant to the purport and what's being spoken. So I apologize for elaborating immensely on that without it really having so much relevance to some of the larger points Prabhupada was making today, because there was so much that actually could have been pulled out, and I completely missed that. So I apologize for that. I guess on one hand, though, what I'm trying to, because we shouldn't speak according, or not that we shouldn't. Yeah, it's better not to speak on what you don't know, but on at least aspects of a situation that are, I mean, it's a whole, it's like you said, it's such a pretty big thing. I mean, so I guess trying to cover that even within one class is like practically impossible anyways, right?
Yeah, I know we're not trying to
It's
particularly
like,
cover it.
I wasn't trying to like, that wasn't like my intention. It's just, anyways, like I said, well, I'm not going to try to justify like what I spoke, so.
Is there any questions or comments?
Yeah, if
Anything
anybody has anything, I guess it's time.
else? Okay. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Stop the live stream. Wait. I just want to talk to the guys.
Hmm?